This is Gemara in Kesubos Daf Lamed Ches. We're holding the bottom of Lamed Zayin Amid Beis. We've been ran through the end into the wide lines. Let's pick it up from 4 lines from the bottom. Hi Kol Chayrim Mai Avidle. We're in the middle of trying to figure out exactly how to darshan up these psukim. And truth is, if you look even a little bit higher, we said Kol Chayr Meshayachram Min Adam Lo Yipadeh Lamali, and we're trying to bring out a source for this pasuk. So the Gemara concluded we're going with Rachanani ben Akavya that said Nerach Nishadar Kesuvim. What are we going to say? Basically, what happened is we had 2 ways of learning. Can one pledge the value of a person that's on the way to being killed? If someone is Chayav Misa and they're in the middle of taking Reuven out to give him skila, and I say, I want to give the value of Reuven to the Beis HaMikdash. So Tanakama said, he has no value. Whereas Rav Chanani ben Akavya said, no, he has a value, because Rav Chanani ben Akavya learned that everyone has a set value regardless of his actual value today in the slave market. So even though right now he's going out to being killed, he still has a value, so he could give it. So now the Gemara is wondering, so according to Rav Chanani ben Akavya, that the person has a value, so hi Kol Chayrim my Avidle. What does he do with the extra words of Kol Chayrim? So he learns it for the following 3 lines, so on the wide lines. Rabbi Shmuel ben Aish Rav Yecham and Broika Aimer Levisha Masinu Lemumsim Bidei Shamayim Shenoistin Mamonim Eschaber them. We find that when someone is Chayiv Misa Bidei Shamayim, that he pays money and he gets his kabara. Shenemar, where do we see this from? Em Kaifer Yushas Alav. It says that when there's going to be a Kaifer, an atonement payment, that's assessed upon him. So this is when there's going to be a Misa Bidei Shamayim. By Misa Bidei Shamayim, there's a kapara that could be had by payment. Is referring to specifically when a axe who's a muad kills a person, so he has a misa b'dei shamayim, but the payment that he gives is a pidyon nafshay, is a redemption for his soul. So im kaifer yushas alav. So yachol, because we see a precedent that one could at some level pay his way out of a death penalty, af b'dei adam kain. Maybe perhaps the same thing should be true when there's a din of a misa b'dei adam. Talmud loymar. That's what this pasuk in the first white line teaches us. Chayrem min adam, kol chayrem min adam lo yipadeh. Pasuk says that when you're a chayrem, you're condemned, then you cannot be redeemed. And now further, vainly alamisas chamurais and shigazan lekapara. That only can teach me the misais chamurais, that if it was b'shagig shaloi ninon shigazan lekaparais, that you would not get a kapara. But misa is kaloish and shigazli kapara minayim. How do we know if it's one of the lighter punishments that there would be a case of a kapara? Tamaloi mar kol chayrim. That's what the extra kol chayrim teaches us. So according to Chanani ben Akavya, we're using this extra pasuk of kol chayrim to teaches us that any type of misa b'dei adam cannot be redeemed with a payment. But I asked the Gemara, really? You need a pasuk 2 lines from the bottom? Can we now learn this out? Don't take money from him and be pater. Call Chayrem Lamalis. Why do we need a pasuk? Within the psukim we can learn that don't take money as a payment if you're Chayim Misa. So what do you need the extra words of Kol Chayrem? So we need it for I would think turning over to Lamechesam and Aleph on Imilich or the Argoy Derech Aliyah. There are 2 ways you could kill it, an upward blow or a downward blow. So you would think that this din is only true if one killed someone with an upward blow. Why? Because the halacha is if someone kills someone by accident, inadvertently, with an upward blow, there's no kabara, there's no Galus. One only goes to Ari Miklat if he kills B'shaygig inadvertently with a downward blow. But if it's an upward blow, there's no B'shay, there's no Kapara. But if it was a downward blow, which if done B'shaygig, if done inadvertently, if as you're hitting the axe downward, the axe it flies off and kills someone B'shaygig, then there is a Kapara. Then one goes to Ari Miklat and gets his atonement. So Ema, then in that case, I would have thought Nishko Mimayne Minev, and if I would think that perhaps in that case you could pay your way out. Kamash Malan, that's what Kol Chayrim teaches me, that there's never a case of paying out of a Misa Bidei Adam. Says the Gemara, Amrle Rava, we're still not happy. We can learn this out. For Tana Dvei Chizkiah, the Tana Dvei Chizkiah, Maka Adu, Maka Behema, this sound familiar, we had this a few days ago. We're equating the hitting of an animal, if one hits an animal to one who strikes a person. When one kills an animal, there is no difference with intent, whether it was inadvertent or not. In all cases, you're obligated. So too, if you kill a person, in all cases, you're going to be pater. So we're back to square one. So what do we need the words kol chayrim for? There is no hava amina that you could use it to pay out of your kapara. So why do we need these extra words of kol chayrim for? Elo amarav merachama nubshat. Itzrich, we need a for. I would have thought that if only there were two different actions, if there's one action that with the act of blinding someone is how you kill him, that's when you cannot pay your way. Let's say you blinded someone and you killed him in another way, but it was simultaneous, but it was two different actions. In that case, I would have a havamina to think you should take a payment. You knocked at his eye, you take a payment, and you get a death penalty for killing him. So, and that's where the case of kol chayrim teaches me, no, there's not going to be a payment any time there is a chiyuv misa. Rav is still not happy. We don't need this. We already knew this din from a different din of Tana Dvei Chizkiah. It says you pay an eye for an eye, but you will never pay an eye and a soul for an eye. So if simultaneously you killed someone and took out his eye, you will not have to pay an eye and a soul, meaning you do not have to give monetary payment, rather, you just are chayav misa. So again, we're still stuck. What do we do? The pasuk of kol chayrim el amar Rav Ashi. Itzrich, we need the pasuk. It's a special novelty. There's a chiddush by kenasim, by fines. No. Since paying a fine, paying a kenas is a chiddush, is a novelty, so we would have a havamina. You do both. You pay a fine and you get killed. Kamash malon kol chayrim. Then no, whenever you're going to get killed, you do not have to pay the fine. But says the Gemara l'Rabba, we know the famous sheet of Rabba that we had, and we're going to have again. The Amar chidushu shechishatayr bekenas avgav the miktam mishan. That's what Rabba holds. Rabba indeed holds that any time there is a kenas, you could get killed and have to pay the kenas. So according to Rabba, what does he do with kol chayrim? I kol chayrim I avidlei. Savla ketana kama Rav Chanani ben Akavya. As we started off today, this is the machlekes Tanikam and Chanani ben Akavya. When one pledges to give the value of someone on the way to his death penalty, only according to Chanani ben Akavya is there a value to him. According to Tanikam, there is no value to him. Why is there no value? Because on the way to be killed. According to Tanikam, that's what Kol Chayrim is teaching you. So according to Rabbah, that says that anytime there's a kenas, you get a death penalty and the kenas, he's going to learn like the Tanikama, whereas the other Shita will hold like Chanani ben Akavya. Says the Mishnah, after a long and lengthy discussion, a new Mishnah, Lamed Ches Amud Aleph. Naira shenis arsa v'nis garsha. We have a Naira, a girl between the age of 12 and 12 and a half that did Erisin and subsequently got divorced. Rav Yisek Lili Omer ein la kanas. She gets no kanas. Rav Kiva Omer yesh la kanas ukanas la'atzma, and she gets the kanas herself. The kanas does not go to her father, as we'll see in the Gemara exactly why. So says the Gemara, my time with Rav Yisek Lili, where did Rav Yisek Lili get his din? That because she did Erisin and then got divorced and then she was violated, that she does not get any kanas. Amar Krash. The pasuk says, "Umatza." Actually, let's take a moment and look at the pasuk together. If you find a naira who's a besula that was never married, and you grab her and you lie with her, and that's the case that we have this special kanas of our entire Mishnah of Elonairis of Chamishim Shekel Kesef. But we see it's clearly Asher Lo Rasa, says Rav Yisek Lili. So back into the Gemara, explains Rav Yisek Lili on Markra Asher Lo Rasa, Rasa. But if they had Erisin and Lo Kanas, there's no din of Kanas. So Rav Yisek Lili learns it out from the words Asher Lo Rasa. Rav Akiva, what does he say? Asher Lo Rasa La Avia. Ha-rasa la'atzma. He just learns there still is a Kanas. Just doesn't go to the father. The pasuk was talking about the kanas going to the father. That's when there's no erisin. But if there's erisin, then the kanas goes to the girl herself. Ask the Gemara in Rav Akiva, there's another diak you can make from the pasuk that's only referring to a naira, not a girl who's already 12 and a half of begaris. Are you going to tell me that diak also only means it doesn't go to the father, it goes to her? Similarly, besula v'lebula achanami delatzma. Are you going to tell me the same thing? The pasuk says it's only if she's a besula. So you're going to tell me if she's a beula, she still gets a kanas, just goes to her? Can't be. Ela ligamri. You have to learn that the pasuk says besula. The pasuk says naira. That is absolute. That if you're not a naira, you're not a besula. There's no kanas at all. Hachanami ligamri. So you have to say the same thing over here. So why, according to Rav Akiva, once there is erisin, it should be done? Why, according to Rav Akiva, even when there's erisin, does he say there's a kanas? We need the words for a different price. As Rav Akiva already taught us, if there's erisin and then divorce, there's no kanas. Rav Akiva oimer yesh lekanas kanasa la'aviyah. There's a kanas and it goes to the father. V'adin noisein hayil v'aviyah zakei bekasek kedusha v'aviyah zakei bekasek kanasa. The father gets both. Ma kasek kedusha afal bishen nisarsa v'nisgarsha la'aviyah. Just like the money of kedushin, even when there's erisin and then divorce, still the father gets it. Afal kanasa afal bishen nisarsa v'nisgarsha le'aviyah. So in Cain, we're back to square one. According to Rav Akiva, what do you do with these words? Mufna, these words are extra, they're free to teach us what? To teach, to compare to it, and to learn from it. Gezira Shava, as follows. 4 lines from the bottom. Nemar kanal shaloy rasa. Nemar lahalan, it says, Bayoinis umafata shaloy rasa. Makanon avlalanon, malhalan shkolan afkan shkolam. So teach us a different halacha, says Rav Akiva. The words that shaloy rasa are free to teach me that the payment is 50-50, and the payment is shkolim. So that's where Rav Akiva does with extra words of Asher loy oy rasa. For Rav Akiva, I asked the Gemara 2 lines to the bottom, my chaz is Asher loy rasa gzeir shava. How do you know what you're saying, Rav Akiva? Basically, there's 3 words we're darshaning from the pasuk. Asher loy rasa, and we're darshaning Besula, and we're darshaning Naira. So it says the Gemara, according to Rav Akiva, how do you know Asher lo yoy rasa? Teach me Gzeir Shava to equate it Chamisha Men Shkalim, Ubesula, Lema'ayid Ba'ula, but yet you agree that the word Besula is coming to exclude a Ba'ula. As we turn over to Lamed Chesem Beis, ask the Gemara, Ema Besula Gzeir Shava. Maybe the word Besula could be Gzeir Shava equating for the Chamishim Shekel Kasef, but Asher lo yoy rasa, Prala Nair, Shadizarvin is Garsha. And the word Asher lo yoy rasa comes to exclude. So ask the Gemara and Rav Akiva, how do you know? Not like Rav Yisei Glili. According to Rav Yisei Glili, Shalai Rasa come to exclude that if there's a case of erisin, there's no longer a kanas. According to Rav Akiva, why not as well? Explains the Gemara 2 lines down of Lamed Chesem Beis, Mistavra Shalai Rasa Ligzeir Shava. It makes more sense that Shalai Rasa is coming to teach us Ligzeir Shava. Why? Sharini Kaire Ba Naira Bisula. Because I can apply to her Naira Besula. The Gemara is saying that we assume that the words Naira Besula comes together, and therefore it includes even a girl who was Nisarsa v'Niskarsha. So Rav Akiva is saying, from the fact that in the pasuk it says Naira, it says Besula, we assume that includes all types of Naira Besulas, even one who had Erisin and Gerishin. So that's the reason why Rav Akiva does not want to learn that Shalai Rasa come to exclude. Says the Gemara, we can say what you're saying, the exact opposite. Besula how do you know? Explains the Gemara, Mistavra, Ha'ishtani Gufa, Ha'ishtani Gufa. Says the Gemara, there's a fundamental difference. When it comes to Besula and a Ba'ula, it's a different person. So it makes sense that a Besula comes to exclude a Ba'ula, it's a different person, the body changes. But from Neirisin and Gerishin, the body doesn't change. That is why Rav Yisei Aglili and Rav Akiva debate as they do. But it's the obvious kasha now. That's Rav Akiva. Rav Yisei Aglili Aisfara Minali. Where does Rav Yisei Aglili know this din? Where does Rav Yisei Aglili know the din of Chamishim Shekel Kesef? Nafkalei Miditanya. Kesef Yishkol Kamay Absulis, as we've seen already. She said that in this case, Kamar Absulis, Kamar Absulis Kezeh, and it should be like this. So that's Rav Yisei Aglili knows that this is the din of Chamishim Shekel Kesef. But now, after all the dust settles, says the Gemara, something that I'm sure were bothering people. On the bottom of Novel Aleph, there was a direct contradiction. Kasha Rav Akiva of the Mishnah, and Rav Akiva of the Brisa. are arguing on each other. Why? Rav Akiva in the Mishnah said, who got the money? The girl herself. Rav Akiva in the Brisa said, who got the money? The father. So which one is it? Meaning, we came along to explain Asher Lo Irasa, and we explained that beautifully. But at the end of the day, we're left with a stira. We're left with the fact that when it came to the Brisa, it said the money went to the father, and when we came to the Mishnah, it said the money went to her. Explains the Gemara, Trei Tanaya, leave it to Rav Akiva, two different Tanayim in the opinion of Rav Akiva. Now we go a bit deeper into this point. I understand Rav Akiva in the Mishnah didn't learn the Gzeir Shava after the Kra mi pashte legamri, and he learned. Why? Because the Gzeir Shava does not come and remove the pasuk from the pashas entirely. El Rav Akiva de Braisa as Gzeir Shava maskim me pashas legamri. Ask the Gemara, I don't understand. According to Rav Akiva in the Braisa, there still is a fine. It just goes to the father. So the Gzeir Shava is coming and uprooting the pasuk entirely from the pashas pshat. How could that be? You know why? We darshin asher loy irasa. You know we learned asher loy arusa in the current, asher loy irasa is in the past, who was not engaged in divorce. Asher loy arusa means who is not currently an erisin, and therefore that's what the pasuk is coming to say, excluding someone who is currently b'shas erisin. But says the Gemara, I don't understand. Erisin baskilu. If you're telling me that the case is talking about the woman is currently engaged, and that's when someone violates her, but if she's currently engaged, the halacha is your chayiv skila for violating her. Answers the Gemara, I would have thought that no, maybe because it's a kenas, 50 shekel kesef, maybe the halacha would be even though you're chayiv misa for violating her and you get skila because she's engaged, maybe you get both. Maybe you get skila and get killed. So that's why we need a special pasuk. So what's the kasha? As we saw at the beginning of today, according to Rabbah says it is a chiddush. And indeed you get the kenas and your chayim misa. Though you get killed, you have to pay. Michael, remember what are you going to say? Explains the Gemara. Like Rav Akiva, Demas Nisa. And Rabbah is going to have to like Rav Akiva of the Mishnah so that it does not contradict his opinion. And therefore, that's going to be the end of the two shitas. We're going to have Rav Akiva in the Mishnah, Rav Akiva in the Braisa. They're both going to agree that there's a fine. The machlek is going to be whether it goes to the father or whether it goes to her herself. Tanu Rabbanan, let's just begin the next Gemara. Kanasa lemi. Who do we pay the fine to? Says the Gemara about 10 lines to the bottom. The first one line is La'avia. La'avia v'yisharmin la'atzma. La'atzma amai. Why would it go directly to her? The pasuk says explicitly it goes to the father. Amrav chistacha ben nairish and isarsa ben iskarsha askinan. Come we looked at the Tanaka, the Rav Akiva de Masnis and Rav Akiva de Braisa as we just saw. That's the machlekes when there's eris and iskarshin. Do we say it goes to her? Do we say it goes to the father? The difference between Rav Akiva and the Mishnah, Rav Akiva and the Braisa. We'll pick it up from Abaya on the next year. Amir Tzashem.